Go back to those gold sounds and keep my advent to yourself, because it's nothing I don't like. Is it a crisis or a boring change when it's central, so essential? It has a nice ring when you laugh.
Hey guys, I'm gonna do something that I haven't done in a really long time today. I'm gonna do a contest entry. This is for one of my favorite channels now in the VC, and it's Seekingathread, which is Dom's channel. Dom's up in Ithaca, New York, for those of you that don't know. Dom hosts a radio show called Searching for a Thread, and his show recently just had its 300th episode, and so surrounding that, as well as after months of making videos in the VC, he decided, that he would like to do a contest. The idea was great, and it's really generated some really great entries, and some folks doing things, talking about music in a way that you don't necessarily see them talking about music all the time, and so that's been really cool. But he's calling it Gold Sounds, and that was the theme of his 300th episode of his radio show. And it's basically, he just wanted people to talk about songs that were really important to them in their life at some point, like if they, more than really, that they kind of like guided them on their musical journey, kind of pointed them in certain directions, or, along those lines. You get what I'm saying. Now, also, real quick before I get started on that, I want to, again, mention my friend Eric Weinbender, who was in a really bad car accident and was lucky to survive. It's bad, and he's fine, but he's got a long road of recovery in front of him. There's a GoFundMe that was started by someone else here in the vinyl community. I encourage people to donate if you can, if you have the means. Also, I am auctioning off 3 records, and I'll have links for all of those in the description for anybody that might be interested. All the proceeds from that auction will go to the GoFundMe that was started for Eric. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Dom actually sent me some VCLT in the mail. It's this album by the band Do Make Say Think. It's called You're a History in Rust. Dom had mentioned Do Make Say Think in one of his videos. He'd shown a record by them, and I commented, a little bit of a connection that I had with the band, that, a friend of mine had introduced me to them. And Dom had this come through the shop, and it was very nice of him to think of me at all, first of all, and then to send it my way. So it's greatly appreciated, and we'll probably start a Do Make Say Think collection. And Dom also sent me this note, and I thought I'd read it because it's very nice, and I don't really do this a lot, so I thought I would just read this note. I don't think Dom will mind. It says, "Surprise, found another copy of this Do May Say Think record. Great band, as you know. Reaching out and saying thanks for your top-rate content. I think your channel is one of the best, if not the best channel in the vinyl community." Wow, Dom, that's really nice. Yeah. Your lack of charisma and subpar oral skills are a sight to behold. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't read the rest of this. But anyway, he does close in saying, keep playing it safe, Dom. So, yeah. Thank you, Dom. I appreciate that. Now, Do Make Say Think is a post-rock band out of Canada. And that leads me to my first selection for Gold Sound. And it's the song Moya off of this EP by Godspeed, You Black Emperor. Called the EP is called Slow Riot for New Zero Canada EP. I have to read that because I have to read everything by them because their titles are so epic. But anyway, the song Moya, which is the first side of this record. One of my best friends, Rob, put that song on a mix CD for me. He used to send me these mix CDs when we were in college, and he would always pull song titles or album titles from that were very epic sounding, you know, and he would title the mix that, and then he would put a lot of songs. It was mostly indie stuff, indie rock, you know, stuff he would hear on his college radio station where he was, stuff that friends of his at college had introduced him to, and there was a lot of post rock, and he really introduced me to pretty much that genre, if you will, with this song Moya, and it led me down the road to Godspeed and Silver Mount Zion, Mogwai, Tortoise, you know, those bands. That's the first one, Moya by Godspeed, You Black Emperor. Now for something completely different. You know, when I was a kid, a young kid, before I was even 10, you know, that young. My parents always listened to a lot, what we used to call back in the day, like the oldies station, which played a lot of music, and most of it was, the large majority of it was like R&B music from the late 50s into the mid 60s. And my parents listened to that music all the time. A lot of Motown, a lot of Temptations, Four Tops, the Supremes, you know, the bigger groups. But yeah, and it was largely influential on me later in life as well, because I have a huge love for R&B and soul music to this day. In the Carolinas, we had this regional thing that was called beach music. And I don't want to get into too far. I might do a video on it. My friend Elliot Cruz did a video on this if you want to look it up, but I don't want to get too much into the history of it. But it was a regional thing. It's slightly has some things in common with like the Northern Soul thing in the UK. But it was basically, you know, radio stations, these kids, younger kids, teenagers, in their 20s, you know, 20-somethings, mostly white, if not all white, kids that would tune into radio stations and listen to R&B music, you know, from the late 50s into the 60s. And there was a popular dance that actually had been around for a long time. I think it first popped up in the 20s, and it's called the shag. And a lot of these songs, a lot of these R&B songs that they would classify as beach music kind of had this tempo in common, and they would do this dance, the shag, to all of these songs. And there's all these compilations. They're out there, radio stations. And when I was a kid, we would go to the beach. My parents would play those compilations in the car all the time. They would play those year round, but I just have the attachment mostly to going on beach trips in the summer. And all of them already kind of had an audience. They were charted songs, you know, in R&B, so they weren't like obscure sounds, which is like what you find in Northern Soul. I don't know. These were songs by like the chairman of the board, the Tams, songs like and other songs like by the Platters. I used to get so tired of that music because it was the same things like over and over again. And when you would cut on the radio station that was closer to the coast, it would be the same songs, it was the same radio format. But there were certain songs that really stuck with me, and one that I still have on record, and it's a pretty big one, and everybody knows it, is It's All Right by the Impressions, which is one of my favorite R&B songs of all time still. But this was a song that you heard quite often on those radio stations that would play beach music. But yeah, it was a instrumental part in the making up of the music that I still love today. So in the early to mid 2000s, I had discovered Fela Kuti, and I was interested in finding more kind of African music, Afrobeat, high life music, things like that. I explored a lot of compilations that you could find at the time, and I came across this album by Orlando Julius and his Modern Aces. It's called Super Afro Soul. I believe it originally came out in 1968, and it was reissued on Strut. I bought the CD 15 to 18 years ago, I guess, somewhere around that time. On this particular album, there's a cover of My Girl. It's somewhat of a faithful cover, but then it has like these very roots-based African rhythms, you know, underlying it, specifically in the percussion. And when you combine that with those perfectly simple lyrics, and I don't mean simple to slight it at all, they're beautifully simple and concise and straight to the point. When you combine those lyrics with those rhythms, it almost transforms it into a folk song. And if you weren't so familiar with it already, and if you know, and it obviously being sung in English, you would really think that it was, you know, native to this area. And this album was instrumental in me, you know, finding some more sounds from that part of the world. And it's something that I've specifically revisited more in recent years. Now, this video is already long enough. And Dom, I'm sorry to make this so long, but these next two songs aren't really songs that shaped my musical journey or my musical path. But the first one that was really impactful to me when it first came out is a song called Palmetto Rose. And it's by Jason Isbell of Something More Than Free, which came out in 2015. Anybody that's been watching my channel for a long time, they've heard me talk about Jason Isbell enough. But bear with me, and I'm gonna take you on a little long walk for this, and I'm sorry, a little long walk. No, I'm gonna take you on a long walk for this one, and I apologize in advance. So the first day I'm gonna talk about is June 17th, 2015. A 21-year-old man named Dylan Roof attended a Bible study at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. In the middle of this Bible study, Dylan Roof stood up, pulled out a gun, and then proceeded to murder 9 people in that room. 9 of the people that had come for that Bible study. All of them black, one of them being the minister of the church and a state senator, Clementa C. Pinckney. It was a massacre, obviously made national headlines. Some of you probably remember it. It's one of the more tragic events in history. The fact that that shooting took place in a church. No matter what your beliefs are, that is a sacred place, and for that to happen. And it was incredibly impactful on a lot of people in this area for obvious reasons, but also nationwide. And it would kind of spark a chain of events from there on, which I will return to. Now, fast forward to July 10th, 2015. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. One of my really good friends, Mike, was in town. We both traveled separately to Columbia because he was visiting some friends of ours, and he wanted me to come down and hang out. He wanted to take me to Bill's Music Shop and Pickin' Parlor in Columbia, South Carolina. It's an old music store. They have this really decent-sized room with a stage where they hold musical performances. And that particular night, they had an open mic. So after several people get up and play, some folk tunes, some bluegrass songs, some older country songs, and older black gentleman gets up on stage with his guitar, and he plays one song, I can't remember what it was, and then he played 2 songs that he wrote. And one of them he dedicated to our First Lady, Michelle Obama. Now, if I'm being honest, it was a bit clunky. It went on for way too long, but that's not the point. The point is that he did that song, and I can guarantee you that 90% of that room did not vote for President Obama. It was an all white room. But yet, and this was why it was so impactful to me, yet that audience sat there and they listened and they were polite. They let him play. And when it was over, they applauded. And I even saw a couple of people get up and go over and shake his hand. And looking back on it, especially now, it was a really beautiful moment. As awkward as it might have felt at the time. Now, down the road, on that same day, at that very moment, they were taking down the Confederate flag from outside the State House. The day before, the state Senate, due to some public pressure, they voted to finally take down the Confederate flag, which had flown outside the State House for years in South Carolina. It used to be on top of the State House, and eventually it got moved down to the grounds. That wasn't enough. And finally, after all these years, they voted overwhelmingly to take the Confederate flag down. You would also see a lot of big box retailers nationwide decided to stop selling merchandise that had that flag on it. And then eventually, we would get to Confederate memorials. This was that shooting at the church, the deaths of the Emanuel 9 sparked Black Lives Matter. And I don't tell all those events to say, and that story of that man singing that song to say, oh, look how far we, because we haven't at all. But, especially when you think about the events of last summer and the events that are still happening and have been happening ever since then for years and years and years and years and years. A week later, this album comes out and the song Palmetto Rose, which I heard and immediately grabbed me. Palmetto roses are these things that street vendors in Charleston, South Carolina, sell to tourists. They're basically, they take these palmetto leaves and they weave them into a rose, and they're beautiful, and they sell them. They're everywhere down there. They sell, and all of these vendors are black. All these street vendors are black, and they sell them to, pretty much like predominantly, white tourists. I love how he uses that object and that kind of tradition as like a centerpiece on this particular song, which touches on a lot more. Again, I told you this was going to be a long walk, but I'm going to read you the second verse, from the second verse on. Palmetto rose in the sidewalk mud, dirty white stem and a big green bud. Catch 'em coming out of a King Street store with some bullshit story about the Civil War. That's basically from the narrator's perspective, as a vendor catching somebody coming out of a store on King Street, which is a major street in Charleston where everything is in downtown Charleston. And he sells them a rose and uses this story, this kind of like old wives' tale that these roses were made by the ladies of the South, and given to their husbands and gentlemen, before they went off to fight in the Civil War, which is debunked and absolute bullshit, but told to these people because that they're selling the roses to, because it's probably what they want to hear. Now you can believe what you want to believe, but there ain't no making up a basket weave. Everybody in the Tri-County knows who makes the best palmetto rose. And so the technique that's used in making these roses is the basket weave technique, which was brought here from Africa, from West Africa, with these enslaved Africans, you know, and it's a tradition that's carried on. These baskets, these huge baskets, beautiful, gorgeous baskets, are sold all over the markets in Charleston. And it's a tradition and a craft that started with Africans and African Americans. The chorus goes, "It's a war that we wage to get up every day. It's a basket of sweetgrass, a wedding bouquet. It's the ladies I love and the law that I hate. But Lord, let me die in the iodine state. Lord, let me die in the iodine state." Now, iodine state is a lesser known name for the state of South Carolina. And then there's this bridge to this outro on the song, which is really powerful. "Out on Sullivan's Island, they're swimming, on the beach where the big boats rolled in, with the earliest slaves and their children, our first American kin. Here on King Street, we're selling our roses, 2 for a $5 bill. And at night, after everything closes, I follow my own free will. And I've taken my fill. And I take in my fill." It's a beautiful song, and it gets me emotional. And it would have been a beautiful and impactful song when I first heard it, no matter what. But to have the events of the prior month still fresh in my mind, when this album came out roughly a week, if not a week to the day, after the Confederate flag was taken down outside the State House of South Carolina, it just hit me that much more. I will always think of those moments and that time when I hear this song. And sure, it's not Strange Fruit, and it's not A Change Is Gonna Come, it's not even Blowing in the Wind, but it's still an incredible, incredible song that touches on something that's very deep, you know, very deep in the fabric of our country. So the last song that I'm going to talk about is off this album, Head of Roses, by Flock of Dimes, and it just came out this year. It's one of my favorite albums from this year. It's the solo project of Jen Wassner, who's in a band called White Oak. The song is called 2. It's the poppiest song on the album, which is why I've listened to it so much, if I'm honest. And it's just it's a beautiful pop song. But the chorus has really kind of worked its way into my psyche, and I know she's not writing about it from my perspective at all. But it's a song. The first half of the song in particular really touches on kind of autonomy and your sense of self, but also how it relates to others in your life, specifically people that you're in a relationship with. But I'm going to read again. It's the chorus. I'm doing a lot of reading on this video. The chorus goes, "Can I be one? Can we be two? Can I be for myself and still be still with you? Is it all for fun? Is it just brand new? Little life in one, but the ways are two." And so it's touching on these themes of kind of how can you be yourself and be for yourself and still keep in mind, you know, this other person. And over the events of last year, being at home so long and being with my family so long, and especially having 2 very young children, 5 and 2, my wife and I had very limited amounts of time to ourselves, and we had absolutely no time for just each other, you know? And that's something that I think just naturally happens, but also in the when you have kids, but also just under the particular circumstances of last year, that much more difficult and tough. And so I feel like I spent a lot of time thinking. It just prompted me to think a lot, and I've come out of that still thinking about that a lot. you know, she has to be thinking this too, right? How anybody would in this particular instance. How can you be for yourself still? How can you still have your own self, your own identity, your own thing, you know, that isn't just talking into fucking phone, making videos for vinyl nerds, you know, or whatever. I'm talking about bigger things, you know, things that are more important. And also still be there and be with your partner. It's just something that you have to, it's a constant balance that you're always working out. I feel like in a marriage, it's just how that's just part of it, right? But just that particular chorus just kind of caught me in the right moment. And again, she's not writing from that perspective at all. She doesn't have kids. She's not married. But it still kind of impacts me in a certain way. And I guess in my life, really, the song should be called For and not To. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking about a lot. I probably didn't explain that clearly at all. I guess I should say over the last year, though, I'm very fortunate to have my family. If I was still single and alone and going through last year, I don't know. I don't know how I would have come out of that. It's still a blessing being a fat old dad during last year with a wife that I love very much. That's it. Dom, this is probably an hour fucking long video, and I apologize. You know me, I edit. I'll get it edited down. But I just wanted to do this. I still really wanted to do this. I'm getting it in under the wire. And I don't know. I hope you're doing well. I hope you and your family are doing well. I hope everybody's doing well. Again, please, for those of you that pray, keep my friend Eric in your prayers. Yeah, that'll be it. All right, everybody. Bye. Damn it, I almost forgot. Dom, I want to say, when you enter my name in for this, I don't want you to put my name in for the contest. So if you're drawing names out of a hat or whatever the hell it is that you're doing, I don't want you to put my name in the contest. What I want you to do, instead of writing my name on that little slip of paper that you might drop into a hat, I want you to write local bandography Dave on that slip of paper, and I want you to put it in there. We're going to end this streak. Dave's never won a contest. We're going to end this fucking streak this time. I want you to also, don't throw Mazzy's name in. Instead of writing Mazzy on that little slip of paper, I want you to write local bandography Dave and put it on that slip of paper and drop it in the hat too. Okay? All right. All right, everybody. Bye.
Digital gramophone makes no sense.